an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, David Tennant Specials, Episode 3, technically 3, The Waters of Mars. In this episode, we see what happens when the Doctor decides that a fixed point in time is no match for him, and that he is just going to kind of do whatever the fuck he wants. And I'm really surprised it took him this long to get here. I am apparently not to be trusted with power. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha.
I am Jamie. Hello.
Hello. Everyone,
Welcome back.
Thank you so much for being so supportive while I took an extra week off. This was needed and lovely. And even though when my vacation ended, I was kind of like, that felt really short because I was doing a lot of other stuff during it. I feel like I got to rest anyway.
Good.
It turns out that 2 days of not doing anything at all, right at the end of the vacation, was the perfect way to cap it off, even though the rest of it had been so busy. And by the time I was done with 2 days of doing nothing, I was dying to do something. I'm bad at doing nothing. So, yay.
That's why I always joke that I need a vacation for my vacation. Mm-hmm. When I go out of town, and I'm like, I now make sure I give myself at least 1 day to recover before I go back to like my regular routine, because it's vacation rarely is actually vacation.
It's true. And Owen, when we went on our vacation, like the first time, I was like, babe, you're not going back to work the next day. I forbid you. You need to take at least one more day. And he kind of argued a little, and then he just sort of decided to like just shut me up and was like, fine, I'll take another day. And when the time came, he was like, oh, thank God, I would have been fucking miserable today.
Yeah.
And ever since then, he never goes back the day that he's done, in quotes.
Yeah, I learned my lesson when we went to Chicago, and I was scheduled to open my store the next day after I got home, and our flight was delayed by 3 hours in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So instead of getting home at 5 in the afternoon, we walked in the door sometime after 9.
Ugh.
And I had to basically immediately go to sleep so that I could go to work in the morning, and I was wrecked.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah,
Trying
after
to force
that,
yourself to pass out.
Yeah, I was like,
you would think it would be easy because you're tired, but you're not the right kind of tired.
Right. You need like to unwind so you can actually like everything can fully relax.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So after that, I was like, that's it. Never again. I will always take an extra day.
Yeah. And I, with the upcoming wedding and honeymoon, the wedding is going to be mental. Like, there's just going to be so much going on. We're going to be at Universal, and we're going to visit Galaxy's Edge as well. Tons of walking, tons of crowds. Mm-hmm. So we are scheduling like an extra 5 days after all of that on a beach.
Nice.
And that's going to be the last 4 days of the honeymoon. And I am just really looking forward to it.
Now, this beach, is it going to be not in Florida?
We're thinking Bahamas, because a flight from Orlando to the Bahamas at that time of year is like $84 one way.
Because while November in Florida is not cold per se, it's also not warm.
It was warm last time. When we went last time, we were at the end of November into the
warm enough to spend 5 days on the beach?
Warm. We were at the pool every day. Yeah. And it was like, you know, probably low 80s most days.
Gross.
Yeah, it cooled off at night some, but yeah, this is not like people keep talking about having a winter wedding. And I'm like, not really. We're not really going to be able to lean into that aesthetic without it feeling super weird, because it's
an extended fall wedding.
Yeah, it's going to be warm. But anyway, nobody cares. Hi, everyone. So this episode, can I tell you guys something that broke my heart?
No one wants to know your thoughts.
Nobody wants to know my thoughts on this. Sorry for wasting your time. Thanks for coming. Mr. Tennant gets out of the TARDIS in his spacesuit, and I was waiting for Donna to get out. And then I remembered, and it was horrible, and I hated it so much. It really broke me. Oh, guys, it made me so sad. I can't emphasize enough, like, the moment that I had to take to be like, oh my God. Because he's like smiling and excited, and I'm like, fuck you. Where is she? Like, you don't get to be happy. I know all this time has passed, and he's like moving on, but I don't like it. So there it is.
If it makes you feel any better, Donna was clearly in his heart and his thoughts, because his behavior at the end, especially with bringing up Pompeii, is that I can make these decisions. The irony of it is that he really shouldn't have by making that decision. That was the wrong place and time probably to be like, I make these choices. I'm the last Time Lord, and who's going to argue with me? When Donna would have been like, no, this is a fixed moment. You'll change the history of the world, you jackass. Don't do that.
I don't know that she would.
You don't think?
I don't think so. I think Donna would argue that, like, you don't, like, it might change the history. That doesn't mean something horrific is going to happen. It'll just be different.
He's lucky that his decision to save Adelaide, specifically, because she made the decision that she did, still course corrected so that her family went on to be space explorers. That opens up space to the human race.
So she kills herself. Am I wrong?
Yeah, she kills herself.
I feel like that is way worse.
I agree.
Like, I don't understand how you, like, come home after all this time away and your family greets you and is excited to see you, and you have this amazing legacy, and then you commit suicide, and they continue on with, like, wanting to emulate what you did, because I would associate what she was out doing with her suicide. Like, it was so traumatic that she couldn't, you know what I mean? That she couldn't get over it. And then I don't know. That feels like it would have the opposite effect to me. It's
because you see a flash of a news story. You see that she still died on that day. But then there's an article that, like, an interview with Mia and Yuri, where they talk about how she saved them, and that what she did essentially saved Earth. And I think that that's what her family takes with them to, like, honor. But the fact that she came home, went to an empty house, because that was her empty house, not where her family lives. And
I didn't. Okay, I kind of assume that. I don't know why I would assume that they all live together. That's not how it works for most people. But
right, no, that was like, you see that the house is dark and everything, and there's a brief moment in the beginning when she's having a conversation with her daughter, where her daughter's having trouble selling the house. So she goes home to this empty house and kills herself, which is still traumatic. But if her family needed to put pieces together, then these other two people who were saved could explain that, you know, maybe she just couldn't deal with what she had to do.
Right.
Back on Mars. But it's still like, it's funny that you looked at the doctor's actions and were like, I'm surprised it took him this long. And I looked at the doctor's actions like, wow, you really have gone too far.
It just, this is the kind of thing that, if you have the power that he has and the knowledge that he has, you are going to get to a point where you just are like, well, what would happen? You know, like I just
which
see
works.
so many people reaching that sooner and messing around sooner.
It works with something like Pompeii, where he saved one family who were not necessarily significant historically.
Right.
But in this case, he knows for a fact that Adelaide going to Mars and having to do whatever it is that she had to do, which, you know, from his point
I
of
get
history,
the difference, because like one of them, it's the event of the volcano exploding. That's the thing that he can't change, and that even if he could, that, and this is a specific person's legacy. It's not like the place blowing up is the thing. Right.
Her legacy is what leads to the human race actually exploring further and further away from Earth.
Right.
And so changing that could have affected the rest, like future of the human race. And
Right.
he just decided, you know what? Who's to say I'm making these decisions? It's playing God, which he always has fought against doing. So it shows that he's just gotten to a level of darkness that might be destructive. And part of it is because he's fighting off this, you're coming towards your end, that has been said to him.
I just don't feel that. I don't feel like he's like coming towards a darkness. I feel like this is him trying to find a balance between what he used to do and what Donna has taught him to do. And he is trying to find out how far he can push it.
I think what affected me about it was his demeanor. It's not necessarily the saving of this one person, because that's not necessarily out of the realm of the Doctor's choices historically.
Right.
It's when she realizes, like, you did this and you knew that it could change everything. It could change all of Earth's future. And he was like, and?
Tough.
Yeah, like, he's just so like, it's because I could.
That's the part that
and
I
you
didn't
should be
buy.
thanking me. The line that bothered me the most is when he's like, really? No thank you? It's like, when have you ever expected people to thank you?
I guess I see what you mean there. In terms of like his like, so what, tough. That felt to me like insincere. I didn't feel like he meant that. I felt like he was just trying to be like, can we move on? Because it's done, and he's not going to argue with her about it, and he's not going to go back in time and put her back on Mars and let her die. So,
which he can't do because he can't go back into his own timeline.
Right. So like there's nothing to be done about it. So I kind of felt like that was just him being like, I'm not talking about this. Like, what's done is done. And sort of not even justifying, but sort of like putting off the conversation that he's having with himself, because he's not going to have it with her. Mm-hmm. You know, he's thinking about it, obviously, but like, I just feel much more curious about what happens when he does this, if she doesn't know that this is a fixed point and he brings her back. I would really like to see because it's so tempting. And this is one of those things. I'm going to talk about Cursed Child, everybody. So fucking buckle up, because that is a disaster of a story. But have you read it, Jamie?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. I
So
did.
everybody, I'm just, spoilers abound for the next 5 minutes. In Cursed Child, the conceit is, we have a time turner after all. They weren't all destroyed. Oh, so convenient. We're going to go back in time. And instead of I'm going to go back in time and keep Harry's parents from dying, or I'm going to go back in time and kill Voldemort as a baby or anything, well, let's go back in time and save Cedric Diggory. Like anybody fucking cares.
I care about Cedric Diggory.
Whatever. It's nothing. And these assholes, it's never just we changed the timeline and now Harry's an alcoholic. It's never, we changed the timeline and he became a teacher instead of an Auror. No, it's he changed the timeline, saved Cedric Diggory, and now Voldemort won, and the world is all darkness.
Right.
But what it happens here, if we have this woman not know, the Doctor fucks with it, and then it's not world-ending. It's just really different.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that I'm interested in. It doesn't have to be the apocalypse if you change a thing. It's just, maybe it's her granddaughter that goes on to, space and does all this other shit. And things get slowed down or moved in a different direction a little bit.
What if she didn't know? I mean, we'll never know because story is the story. But she doesn't know. He saves her, takes her home. And then her granddaughter never decides that she wants to honor her grandmother by becoming a space traveler too. Mm-hmm. Is her granddaughter so important that her not exploring further than Mars, then someone else does it, right?
Right.
So yeah.
That's what I assume.
It's little ripples, it's not the butterfly flaps its wings and the hurricane happens on the other side of the planet, necessarily. Right. Small changes aren't necessarily going to change the entire course of history, except on this show where they do.
Yeah, so I'm like, I know that they want me to be worried about him making this decision, but I'm not I'm worried in the sense that I know what the writers think this is and what they're going to do now.
What do you think they're going to do?
Well, I feel like this is going to be this ongoing struggle with him now because he never pushed it this far before. And now he's having doubts about himself, which he's fucking never had a doubt. So I don't know how that'll change his behavior, but it's obviously we're supposed to see this as everything has changed after he chooses to do this. But I just see it as we fuck up trying to find a balance in behavior. That's what we do. That's we go too far in either direction and learn our lesson doing that. Mm-hmm. And this woman sacrificed herself because of his fuck up. And can't this be a lesson that he learns? And then he does better instead of it being the end of it? I
do think that when he realizes that she killed herself, that does snap him out of something a little bit. He realizes, had he not told her that she was supposed to die, she would have then gone on to live a life with her family. But she knew she was supposed to, so she made the decision that she still needed to die. That he didn't have the right to change her future.
Right.
And that makes him, for lack of a better term, it softened his resolve a little bit. His whole demeanor changed when he realized that.
Right.
He got sad. And then he saw an Ood.
That was a weird one.
That was the Ood Sigma who
made the prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I always have a weird thing when it's so they're literally just standing there staring at you after their dire prophecy. We know what the prophecy was. You don't need to do that. It's fine. But yeah, so really the episode for me is it's not I didn't enjoy it. It's just I feel like it's drawing absolute terms. And it's so much more interesting to me if you don't do that. Yeah.
This era of Doctor Who, and I can't speak to the next era as clearly for spoiler reasons, but also because I've seen this stuff much more. I've rewatched it more often than I rewatched the later stuff. So I can't say for sure how they deal with Greys. Where I feel that the Davies era doesn't deal with grays very well. It's very black or white.
Yeah.
And where things are interesting, which is why like Game of Thrones is so interesting, the books more than the show, is that it's a lot of gray. Mm-hmm. People live in that gray space of like, we know what's right, but we're not going to do it, or this is wrong, but we have to do it. Mm-hmm. This show is much more like, what is gray? I don't understand that word.
Yeah. That's part of the appeal of like the Dresden Files for me as well. It's like the, he is an angry person who tends to act impulsively, and he spends like 10 books learning how to control himself and do better and not fuck up, but frequently he fucks up. Mm-hmm. He just do. And that's part of what drives the story, is his mistakes, really. But yeah, this to me it felt like a weirdly human moment, Mm-hmm. Just sometimes that overall XYZ might be better as a big picture choice, but you don't care,
Right. Yeah.
It's just, that just gets outweighed sometimes by just feeling like, yeah, but this is wrong. Like standing here, letting it happen when I have the ability to do something is wrong. Just because I know how things are, quote, supposed to go. There's even a certain arrogance about like saying, you know better than what's happening right now. Like, this is the timeline that you know of is the one and only that's supposed to happen, or else all else is lost. How do you know that? Like, I understand that he's a Time Lord and that's supposed to be sort of his, but we don't know that what Time Lords know is it.
Right.
And what if it's not? What if that's just his version that he knows and he thinks it's supposed to be this way, and there's another version that's better? That's
right. And how would he know when they're all dead?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So he can't ask.
So yeah, that's my overall takeaway, is that I just feel like I watched this in a different way than how they wanted me to. But we're on Mars, so let's get back to the actual plot here. Mm-hmm. We have a crew of people that hail from all different corners of the world, corners of the sphere of the world. And we start off with like one dude joking around, getting slapped down by a second in command who seems very dour and sort of humorless. Mm-hmm. And then we find out that the woman in command is much more humorless. And
she's very
that's why
all
he's
business.
behaving the way that he is, because he knows she's going to be up his ass about it later. So yeah, I love her, BT Dubs, and I want to be like her when I grow up, because this is a woman who is not like, oh, hey guys, can you not do that? I mean, I know that you guys are just trying to have fun. She's like, what the fuck? Stop it. Get back inside, get back to work. And I'm just like, sometimes I just want to be like that. I am, I definitely fall into that women in power, or women like trying to assert themselves trap, where you're writing an email and you're like, how many exclamation points can I put to make myself seem friendly, but not like a lunatic?
Look, this is something that I struggle with every day with my job, because I'm running a business. I need you guys to do your job. We can have fun while we work, but we need to work. Mm-hmm. And it's been a pretty constant struggle for me to find the balance between being assertive and, for lack of a better term, bossy, and being somebody that I want them to like.
Right.
And
because like it or not, likability does factor in a little bit.
It does. It's my default that I want people to like me, but I'm learning that it doesn't matter because I'm the boss. They need to follow the standards and respect my authority, which isn't the right term according to Starbucks, but we had a meeting this week. We have every other week we have this like group with our district, all of the managers. It's called a huddle. And we had to do our like Starbucks resolutions this week. And mine really was like, I need to be more comfortable having the hard conversations with people and not be concerned about whether or not they think I'm being mean or they like me.
Right. Oops,
because
sorry guys, if I hit my mic.
That sounded like a guitar. It was weird.
Yeah, it's like the springs on the side of the boom arm that I like hit somehow.
So yeah, like that's where my struggle lies in my current state is like I'm the one in charge and I have to let go of that like Hufflepuff side of me that just wants everyone to like me and be a little more like McGonagall.
Oh God, that reminds me of Community with you have like a Susan Sarandon vibe. You'd rather keep it real and be likable. And they say this in a very admiring way, even though it sounds like really
it sounds like an insult.
Not a compliment. Yeah. But yeah, I just love her. Like she shows up and she's like immediately a bitch and I was just here for it. I loved her.
I'm looking her up right now because I wanted to see if I knew her. Oh my God, she's on The Leftovers!
She was on The Leftovers and she was Lady Smallwood on Sherlock.
I haven't seen Sherlock yet.
She is great in that role. Leftovers, I couldn't place who she was. She was in several episodes.
Yeah, she, as soon as I saw Leftovers, she's in season 3. I believe that she's the Australian woman that Kevin's dad is at her house. You know when Kevin's dad like ends up at this lady's house? I
don't. I gotta be honest. I like that show was amazing, and I forgot all of it. There's like so much. It's in
Australia. Yeah. It's the 3rd season, so it's in Australia.
Okay.
And Kevin's dad like wanders the desert.
Oh yeah, that whole weird. Yeah. I got you now.
She's the lady whose house he was.
Ah, okay. Yeah, she's great. Like
she's really great.
And she's one of those women who like. It's not that she's gotten all this work. Like, I'm sure she's had work done. She's in Hollywood. But she isn't somebody who it looks like she's just struggling to hold on to her youth in this, like, feudal... But she's still gorgeous. Like, just so beautiful.
Well, I think if she's had work... Oh, she's on Rome, too. If she's had work done, it's super subtle. And I think in England, ladies are allowed to age more gracefully without plastic surgery quite as much.
Yeah, it's true. It's lovely to watch British TV for that reason. Women can be like age and they can be a variety of weights as well. It's nice.
Yeah. It's interesting because one of the trivia little tidbits I found was that when Russell T Davies was writing this, he was writing this role kind of with Helen Mirren in mind.
Ooh, nice.
That he wanted her possibly to play the role. But then the role sort of changed a little bit, and then they got Lindsay Duncan. And when I look at her, she's very Mirren-esque to me.
Totally.
So totally. I think that's really interesting. Like maybe they tried to get Helen Mirren and couldn't, but they found maybe the next best thing of that category of woman, because she has the same sort of elegance and beauty and authority. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Contrast her with, and also from Sherlock, Gemma Chan. Is it Gemma or Gemma Chan?
Gemma
Chan.
Is she on Sherlock too?
She was in the 2nd episode of the 1st season, which I think is the worst one.
I only made it like 15 minutes into that. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. And like one of my biggest complaints was how they used her character and made her like the sweet, submissive, like Asian girl, stereotype white boy fantasy, fetishized, like it just was really gross. And here they have her like with her hair down, obviously a curling iron went through it, eye makeup on, I mean, guys, can you just have her ponytail up and no makeup because she's at work on Mars? Is that all right?
Beautiful though.
She's so beautiful, and we don't. Come on.
She's amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I always think that she does great work. It's just that everybody who puts her in things has been a dick. So there's been one or two things that she's really gotten to shine and be a character.
Have you watched Humans yet?
No.
Okay. I haven't seen the later seasons. I've only seen the first season, but she's the main character on Humans. She's phenomenal.
I don't even know what it is. I never even heard of it.
It's a British show. It has that guy, Colin, what's-his-face, that was in the episode of Midnight, who was also on Merlin.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's in it, and it takes place in,
Baby Cumberbatch. That's how I think of him.
It's, near future in England, and there are these robots, but they're humanoid robots, and they look like humans, they feel like humans. They're mostly used in service sort of roles, and there's this group of them that kind of evolve and don't want to be servant and used in these ways because they're kind of becoming more human. And she's one of them. It's really good. I don't know. I think it just wasn't airing at a time where I knew the second season it was on AMC, and I missed the whole second season. I think there's 3 seasons, but the first season was so great. And that's where I had seen this episode before, but side characters, I often don't remember them from the show until later on. And so that was the first thing I really was like, who is she? And I looked her up. And everything that I've seen her in since, she's just really a really, really great actress that, you're right, often doesn't get to do what she's capable of. That's why I think people should watch Humans, because she really does get to do so much on that show.
Yeah, I'm looking at her right now because I paused on it, and she just really is stunning. So it's it's one of those things that I don't want to be oh, poor beautiful women, they have it so hard, because, come on. But it is a danger. Is people don't see past that, and then you don't get to explore the range of who you are, and that's
Did you see that weird video that was made that was what it's like for women to audition?
Yes, that had what's her face in it?
Yeah.
Yes,
and it starts with Amelia Clark, but Gemma Chan's in that too, and I believe with her they're could you be a little more white? And she's like, what?
Yeah. Catherine Tate in that bit is absolutely flawless. She is hateful.
As usual.
Oh my God, you just want to drown her. She's just so awful. I loved her. Oh, she's so good. I love her so much, you guys. I'm so mad.
I wish you could have come to Dragon Con and just sat in on that. It wasn't even a panel. It was just Catherine Tate answering questions and being hilarious.
Maybe
for an hour. She was so great. I wish I had videoed the whole thing, but they asked us not to. And she was like, guys, everybody just put your phones away.
I mean, I respect you, Catherine, and I'll allow it, but I'm not going to be happy about it.
She actually said, if your phones are out, I'm going to be concerned about what angle I'm standing at and whether I look fat or not. So please, I'd rather be relaxed. And you got to respect it, where she's like, don't make me uncomfortable up here. I just want to have a good time talking.
God, we have been talking for so long, and we haven't even gotten into the. Okay.
Sorry, guys.
So the doctor, he is wandering around the surface of Mars, and they wind up scooping him up. And Adelaide, the captain, is just like, "Hey, what the fuck are you? You are some random person on the surface of an alien planet." She has good reason to be extremely wary of him.
Yeah, she's like, name, rank, purpose. He's like, the doctor, fun.
And he had been brought inside by this robot thing that this kid is building that keeps just saying gadget.
Gadget. He built it out of the spare drone parts that the drones set up the base for them before they arrived.
Right.
And so he built this robot out of the like old drone parts, which is kind of interesting.
Guys, can we talk about outer space for a second? And not in the real way, in the way of like we're like out here using physics to figure out that these pulses of light come from someplace that's this many light years away, which means that it's either like already dead or there's some like superstructure between us and it that we think is an alien like creation. There are guys, I cannot adequately express my fear of people who know how to do the kinds of things that like NASA does. That kind of intelligence that's really, it's a different kind of intelligence than something that I often think about, which is the kind that I tend to think about is like emotional intelligence and empathy and doing the right thing and morality and whatever. But this is an intelligence that figures things out that I, as a person, will often think, well, there's just no knowing, I guess. And they're like, no, there's totally knowing. We'll show you how to know. Here's how we have charts. There's data going back 50 years, actually, on the thing that you think we just don't know. It freaks me out a lot. And we have like telescopes and shit that cost like $1 million that somebody literally like a tenth of a human hair. They misjudged the measurement and the thing was just a fucking paperweight. That's that kind of pressure? Are you kidding me? I mean, can you imagine being the person who made that mistake? Working at NASA and being that guy who did that? No. Forget it. Just retire. Just go. Like, the stress, it stresses me out just thinking about it. So I frequently just choose not to because it just gets to me. I don't know what it is about it, but there's just so much riding on it, so much that could go wrong, so many easy mistakes to be made. And there's nobody's like footsteps to travel in with a lot of it because it's all being done for the first time ever, you know?
Yep.
It's just really...
And it's not just the level of intelligence and the type of intelligence that these people have. It's the imagination that they have as well. Mm-hmm. Like, can we do this? Let's figure out if we can. And if we can, then how we can. Mm-hmm. Like, they are, I'm sure, trying to figure out how to start a colony on Mars.
Oh,
I'm sure.
100% they've been, yeah.
And like,
the Earth is dying. We gotta go.
Mars isn't going to be our place.
Probably not, but
it's a
never
fucking
know.
Dry planet where nothing can grow.
So
which is why The Martian is such a great book and movie.
Guys, The Martian was super, super good. I didn't see the movie, but I read it. And it was
the movie is really good.
Like if you like a lot of data, which I tend to when it's something like that.
Well, and that book is, which we talked about when we covered it for the book club. He wrote this and actually consulted with people from NASA to like, hey, how far off am I? Could you help me with the real science here? Like, what would it take? And that, I think, is what makes that book even more remarkable, is that the tone is so light and fun, and yet the science is sound.
Right.
It's not science fiction.
I tend to recommend audiobooks a lot, and I thought the audiobook I listened to it in part in audiobook, but if you actually read it, you can skip over the like walls of data. I mean, I don't recommend always doing that because sometimes it's actually kind of interesting, but there are times where he's just literally like giving you like the parts per million of like some obscure gas, and you're just like, I trust you. I don't need to know this.
I really highly recommend the movie, though.
Yeah, I've never seen it. But is that with Matt
Damon?
Wahlberg?
Matt Wahlberg. it's Matt Damon, but also like Sean Bean's in the movie, and Sebastian Stan and Jessica Chastain and Donald Glover. It's great.
How weird. Okay. So anyway, yeah, this gives me anxiety, this first part of this, because they're like out here talking about like they have this kind of awesome greenhouse, and they're talking about like the supplies to grow everything and how it's all coming along. And all I can think is just like, if anything goes wrong, if you run out of food or something doesn't grow the way it's supposed to, some seeds are duds, or as we see later, like the water filter winds up not fitting, you're just so screwed.
Yeah. Because it takes, like, when they're packing everything up, it's a 9-month flight, basically, back to Earth. And, like, we need to have enough food and water. And as it turns out, you're fucked with the water. Like, they never would have been able to leave.
No, yeah, it's treated as like, well, we can just go because we're not infected. And I was kind of like, she said that it would take 6 hours to load and you gave her 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's going to take 15 minutes just to get your suits on. Let's be real. Like,
right.
To get out to the shuttle. But yeah, so this, like, I'm into this kind of story because of all the variables and all the shit that can go wrong. I like that. And that's what makes Mars Attack. What's the name of the book? Martian. It makes that really interesting.
Mars Attacks.
I never saw Mars Attacks. I know that's not what it is, but it's like I keep thinking about it. But it also, like, I'm such a planner. So in some ways, this would probably be a great job for me because I have the leveling of anxiety where I comprehend what's at stake here. And I'm really good at thinking through everything that I need. And like, I will sit down when I am about to go on vacation. I'm not kidding, guys. I will sit still in my chair and I will imagine everything I'm going to do when I get up in the morning at the hotel and write my to-do list as I'm thinking through the actions of the entire day. And that's just going somewhere a few hours away sometimes, you know? So maybe I'd be good at this, but I feel like I would vomit with anxiety because I'm not going myself. I'm planning for somebody else if I'm working at NASA, right?
Right.
I'm probably like packing up this thing and then sending some poor schmuck out with my hopefully complete list. What if I'm wrong? What if I got it wrong? That's just such a nightmare to me. Can you imagine? Can you imagine sitting there and the person being like, guys, we're missing a couple of gallons of gasoline. And I just be like,
well, I guess we're going to get almost home.
yeah, you know, like, I guess we'll just float. We'll go into orbit until we die. Anyway, I'm sorry, guys. I know that I'm just like fixating on this, but that's part of what makes the episode work is the knowledge of how isolated they are and how everything is built to such specifications, but against air. We didn't think through other elements because why would you? They're not an issue.
Why would you ever think that a flood would be the thing?
Just, this is so bonkers. So this is
it's kind of brilliant to make it water because, like the doctor says, water is patient. It will wear things down.
Yep.
And it absolutely will. So,
have you been to the Grand Canyon, y'all?
I have.
That shit is crazy town banana pants.
Yeah, that was all done by a fucking river that was at ground level once. And now is way, way down. Yeah, I just think that it's really smart to make it water, especially because you also don't think about water being on Mars. Unless
you're with NASA and that's like all you think about.
Right.
Didn't they do a whole thing with that recently?
Well, in 2015, they did discover that there's evidence that there used to be water on Mars.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
And of course, when that was discovered, I was like, what's in the water, though?
You were like, everybody, don't talk about it. Spoilers.
I've seen that episode. It's not good for water to come from Mars. It's just, we don't know what grew in there.
So the dude that is first affected by this is Andy, who's growing these gorgeous carrots and talking about how this is like a new Eden. That's what we should have called this place. And he eats a carrot, and it's like a little bit later that we see him all fucked up. And I kind of thought that it was like just the carrot itself, that it was food grown in the water. But it turns out that this is a result of him like using a different filter to water the crops with, right? Because the filters they sent didn't work properly. So either
probably
he's using a different filter or no filter.
I think there's no filter.
Can we get a screenshot of him with his face all fucked up and put hashtag no filter underneath it and put it on Instagram? Guys, I'm sorry. I'm so stupid.
All right, somebody make that.
Oh, God. Yeah, his face is real scary, guys. When he turns around, like, frequently on this show, it'll be a big reveal of a moment where you're just kind of like, yeah, I know you want me to be scared. We'll see what goofy shit y'all came up with. But this was one of those moments where I was genuinely like, what the fuck? Like, it messed me up.
It's the combination of, like, the skin around their mouth and on their faces being cracked like the desert with all of this water just pouring out of them.
Yeah.
It's really creepy. The eyes, I think the eyes weren't even necessary.
They probably weren't, but I like the distinguishing of the two different like stages that they can be in using the eyes as a signal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know if they were going for a particular creature with those eyes, like if it's like a lizard.
I don't think so. It's just like their eyes went really white.
But the pupils are still a pupil.
Yeah. But like a pinprick pupil, like they've constantly got light in their eyes.
Yeah, exactly. What a weird thing. So he gets, what's her face? Because she's working with him and she approaches him and it's just like, hey buddy,
Maggie.
What's going on? Maggie?
Yeah.
And she is found like passed out in the garden and they bring her inside into the infirmary area.
Well, she's not actually in the garden. She's in the hallway, like the corridor between the garden dome and like leading back to the main dome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoy. I don't know where they filmed this all. But the vibe of it felt really. It was a weird claustrophobic effect that they managed to get, even though it was a big space. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which is kind of
because
you know you
can't go outside.
Yeah. I guess it's just like that knowledge is enough to get you there. And yeah, the scene where she's like waking up and you know something's wrong. You know that she's not okay, but you don't know exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. And this poor Russian dude is just talking about his family and everything, and while she's like fucking up in the background. Mm-hmm. Very upsetting. I didn't like it. I'm just saying. I don't know if any of you heard that story, but he was telling a story about a family member who bought another family member a car using the first family member's credit card.
His brother is married to a guy, and he bought his husband a car, but he used his husband's money.
Which, like...
So, or maybe the husband bought the brother a car. But I think it's the other way around. The brother bought the husband. Brother,
yeah.
But used the husband's money, and then the husband's like, well, then that just means I bought it for myself. And
correct.
Yuri thinks that this is hilarious.
I just like that. I had that when I was a little girl and didn't understand how money worked. My dad decided that he wanted to buy my mom a car for her birthday. And I didn't realize at the time that like my mom was fine with the car she had. My dad wanted a new car. And he was like using her birthday as the excuse to do that. You know what I mean?
So he bought her a car, but he drove it.
Well, it wasn't even that he drove it. It was just like, it was not about her or what she wanted, you know?
Yeah.
And so when we like drove it home and told her, I could tell she was more scared than happy. And I think she was worried about the money. Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand why at the time. And I was just kind of like, what the fuck? And hearing this story, it just made me think about that again. And I was like, I would be so angry. Oh my God. I'd be so mad. Fucking forget it. Because you can't give it back. That's it. That's done.
Well, you can. You've got 3 days to return a car.
I guess it depends on if it's been 3 days since they bought it and they've been hiding it. Like, yeah. Oh, man. Anxiety again. Sorry, guys. I keep getting caught up in this. Like, but. So yeah, while he's telling this story, we see her like behind him convulsing essentially until she sits up straight and is talking about the earth and how it has so much water because he's got a map up on his computer explaining where he's from because she asked, not understanding that she's like, you know, an enemy that's checking out the terrain essentially. So when he turns around finally, as she's like saying, oh, so much water, the earth is beautiful. And she says something like, we would love to have it.
Yeah.
He turns around and looks at her and he sees her face. And I love the like disgust. He's just like, fuck. And immediately gets on the horn. And what I found kind of gratifying about this episode is that this is not an episode where shit goes left because people don't do their fucking jobs.
Right.
You know, this is the kind of thing that they could not have avoided this. Everybody else is very competent. The only thing that could have avoided this is if Natasha, in planning, had sent the correct filter. Thanks a lot, Natasha. So I really like that because it's hard to like get invested when you're watching a thing and you're just like, why don't you just do this? Oh my God. Yeah. But if everybody is doing the thing that you would want them to do and it's still going really wrong, it makes you feel just as panicked. You know, it makes you feel connected to everything in a way because you're like putting yourself in their position in a way that you can't if you're just sitting there with your arms crossed like you fucking idiots. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this also. So they're keeping her locked, thinking that she's like contained and that that's enough. And the doctor and Adelaide are still walking through the garden, I guess. I keep wanting to say like farm, but it's more than that because there's like full trees and birds and everything.
Yeah, it's... What do they refer to it as on here?
Terra something.
Yeah, it's a garden, basically.
But yeah, they come across fucking Andy, and he has Tarak, I think is the name of the guy.
Yeah.
He has him like on his knees and is like pouring water over him in this like... It's really, guys, it's extremely unnerving because it's like the dude is being drowned, but he's also shaking really violently, like he's being electrocuted. Mm-hmm. And he's kneeling in front of the dude who has his hand on his head. So it's almost like that guy is like electrifying him. It's just it's very upsetting. I really did not like this imagery at all.
It's like a violent infestation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, at this point, the doctor is trying to like intervene and he's got his sonic screwdriver out and is trying to talk the thing down. But Adelaide pulls her gun and the doctor's getting really like, you know, can we not be out here with guns waving right away? But it becomes really clear that his method is not going to work either. Because he's sort of like, well, maybe we can reason with it. So if you come at it like that, it'll be less likely to listen. And then a second later, you can tell he's like, oh, there's no reasoning with this thing. Nope, never mind. Escape. And anyway, he knows what happens here. But it's interesting because there's so many moments in this. And he even says it where he could leave and doesn't. He tries to intervene or do something.
Yeah.
Like, if he had stopped this infestation here, that's still changing everything, isn't it? But he's still trying to do it, you know? So, like, it's interesting. I don't know.
Well, because things escalate, but they take a little bit of time. And it's that, like, I like to look at this and imagine what happened without the doctor being there. So you've got Andy who gets infected. He infects Maggie. She's inside the dome, in the medical bay, and locked in the quarantine. But if the doctor hadn't been there, potentially Adelaide because Adelaide would have had to issue the level 5 or whatever it was. So Tarak gets infected, Adelaide gets back, says we need to go, but Maggie does what she does, where she basically shorts out the door.
Right.
So she still gets in, and then the other two still get into the ventilation shafts and start wearing everything down with water. So all the things that happened while the doctor was there still would have happened, except that they all would have exploded with the base.
Yeah, I really wonder, like, you know, after talking about life on Mars, if that is how this would actually be built. Could a short open doors that aren't meant to be opened, or are they going to have also like physical locks and levers and whatnot in place to make sure that, like, well, there's a great likelihood actually that electricity is going to fail. So we're going to make sure that we have like backups to that as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but why would they ever think that they have to keep somebody locked in quarantine?
It's not even necessarily the quarantine specifically. It's more if something were to happen to a portion of the building, we want to be able to cut ourselves off from it. Right. You know what I mean? Because if something gets ripped away, if there's a storm.
I think that water specifically wouldn't be something that they would be especially worried about on Mars. Because, like, in reality, there isn't a glacier that they could put a base over and then melt that ice and make water, which could then short out electricity.
But I'm not, like, lots of things can happen to short out electricity. There could be an explosion. There can be, like, a sandstorm. There can be, like, some sort of sudden solar flare, maybe. Or just a failure of equipment that, like, you know, somebody sends the wrong filter. I don't know. Like, I feel like that's just the sort of thing that you want to be prepared for.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's really hard to fully prepare for all eventualities. They do talk about, like, that gets covered in The Martian.
Right.
When he blows up part of his...
The Martian. I call it Life on Mars. I don't know. There's too many Mars things. I'll just call it a different thing every time I talk about it.
You know, he accidentally blows up the airlock, which opens up his hab and kills all his potatoes.
Right.
He wouldn't have expected that, but it was one little weak part of the canvas. Mm-hmm. And that opening and closing of the airlock over time wore it out. Mm-hmm. And it split. And then all of that, no oxygen, exploded. So, yeah, like, you can't, some things you just can't prepare for, no matter how hard you try.
I mean, some things you can't prepare for, but just preparing for the eventuality of no electricity, that's a pretty big general thing.
Yeah, I think
it's not a little detail of like, oh, this one strange thing went wrong. It's just like...
I think that there would be backup generators and stuff. Should electricity have an issue, that there's a backup generator to, like, get some light in there to fix things.
And would that run, like, I guess that would be solar powered probably?
Yeah.
And again, that all depends on whether or not there is sunlight. There's just, there's a lot to consider in space travel. I don't know if I impressed that upon you all, that there are many things to think about and that it worries me, but there it is again. So I enjoy greatly that even though this is an episode where I mentioned before, like, we have a lot of running up and down hallways, that it's talked about that maybe they should get bicycles, like folding bicycles a few times.
Folding bikes. They're very lightweight.
Yeah, they should have segways. That's what it should be.
And you know what's funny is I had some weird memory. There must be another episode that I was mixing this up with where they do end up on some sort of little Segway type thing. It happened in an earlier episode. It may have even been back in the first season with Eccleston.
Okay.
I can't remember, but I, for some reason, was like, well, they're going to find, there's something. They ride something. I have a memory of it. And then it's really just they get on, you know, this super powered gadget. But there's, guys, please remind me what the episode is where they end up riding on something. It's either Eccleston or Tennant. I can't remember what the episode is, though.
I can't handle when they get on this gadget. The dude with his hands in the gloves screaming in the other room. I really... it was not funny. It was not fun for me. I was like, are they going to kill this dude? And then they roll up and they're like, oh, thank God we escaped. And he's smoking on the floor. Fucking just... There's a lot of anxiety in this episode. So yeah, they finally make it back, but these two dudes have chased them right up until like the outside doors. Meanwhile, what's-her-face is still in the infirmary area, and the dudes outside the door are just like standing there staring and just being generally unsettling. And at this point, the doctor and Adelaide begin to think about like what could have caused this, where it could come from. Like they need to zero in on the source and cause of the problem in order to determine what the next course of action should be. And she immediately wants to do evacuation, and she gives everybody the orders to start packing everything up. But then he points out that if there is a possibility that Maggie was infected and not showing symptoms, and then all of a sudden turned around and was like revealed herself, that this thing can incubate for any given amount of time, and you don't know who is infected and who isn't. And she's willing to accept that and knows that he's right. She doesn't argue with him, but she continues on with the evacuation procedure until she has more information, pretty much. Because she's going to go out and inspect everything and look at the logs as well, because they don't know yet about the whole filter thing. Mm-hmm. And I really liked this. Again, the story wouldn't really have worked, if you think about it, the way that the writers wanted it to, if Adelaide weren't how she is, which is duty first, job first, fun and emotion later / never. Mm-hmm. Nobody else would be like, well, I guess I'm supposed to die. How dare you save my life? It has to be somebody who sees the world this way and understands exactly like the black and whites of the situation and is willing to be like, well, I matter much less than this whole future. So of course I'm going to do the thing. And here she is like demonstrating exactly that same practicality of just like, for now, evacuation is the thing because it takes a ton of time. But while this is happening, and I'm not going to argue with you about it, I think you may be right. Let's investigate the other thing. And I just love when people are rational like this and like figure out the timing of stuff and what's like necessary. You know, I like her a lot. I want her to be alive still. I'm sad. All the best ladies just turn up dead all the time or worse. So, okay. They find out that it's the filter thing, that the water doesn't get recycled, like the whole system isn't flushed for a week. So that filter that got replaced or taken out or whatever it is, that was only happened earlier that same day. Mm-hmm. And they are all likely not infected. And she is really excited about that. We can continue with our evacuation thing. And the doctor starts talking to her about something that happened to her 50 years ago.
Yep.
This was a weird thing because she says that she never told anybody about it.
He just knows that there must have been something.
And he says 50 years ago because that's when the Earth got moved.
Yeah.
So it's just a guess on his part. It's not any sort of like, what's the word I want? It's not any Lord power.
It could be something with his Time Lord ability to like, I mean, usually he doesn't learn that stuff unless he like, you know, reads people's minds when he like touches
Puts
them.
his hand on them. Yeah.
But maybe it's really not explained how he knows to say what happened 50 years ago.
It's sort of a weird thing because she is really affected by the fact that she saw a Dalek. Mm-hmm. And her parents disappeared. Her father went to like find her mom and he never came back, and then neither of them were ever found.
Right, the Daleks must have killed her parents.
Right. And it's like a sort of a, because the doctor says like you went to after the Daleks but not for revenge, and she says what would be the point of that, with like a genuine like what? And he looks really gratified that that's her attitude. Mm-hmm. But there's also something about this where it's treated like she had this experience that she never told anybody about, almost like because who would believe me? Or like I just never... How many people saw Daleks during that time? Why would that be the thing that like drove her to this?
Because the Dalek looked at her and then flew away.
And then didn't hurt her?
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
And what the doctor says later is that Dalek must have known that she had a purpose later, that she dies later.
Why would the Dalek be able to know that?
Because the Daleks came from the future, I guess. But also, why would the Dalek care? The Daleks don't care about what humans do in the future.
Yeah, and like how does it read her DNA and put together like what her name is? Like how does it know who she is even?
Shrug.
Well,
because.
Indeed. Yeah, so that was the one part that I was really like, we don't need this at all. Like there's no, it doesn't explain anything in my mind as to why she's into space, and you know, like you can just be into that without having had like a close encounter with a Dalek, which other hundreds of thousands of people had close encounters with, and they didn't wind up going to space.
Right.
So it doesn't really feel like even a motivation exactly, especially because she's just like, well, not for revenge, because that would be like the easy thing. It's just I don't know. It was a weird addition that didn't, I felt, add anything to who she is as a character. I'm fine with her just like being fascinated by space just because that's what happens. Like people just get into that shit, you know?
Yeah.
But this is like when she starts to sense that the doctor is not telling her something. And he finally kind of comes clean, not entirely. He just basically tells her that your granddaughter is going to go on and do all this amazing stuff. And she's like, yeah, okay, why are you telling me this? And he says, consolation. Mm-hmm. And she, of course, is no dum-dum and knows what he means by that. And it's just like, fuck. Meanwhile, everybody else is trying to pack everything up. But the two dudes with their water hands are busting through the outside door. Girl in the cage, plastic cage, they like put her on backup power, it looks like, because the lights turn red. And once he's out of there, she feels free to just burn shit down. It's unclear to me whether the backup power made that easier for her to do, or if she just wanted him to not be there because he would somehow stop her. But I assume it's the latter. And let me tell you, these people staring at the camera with water pouring out of their mouths. Nope.
I want to know how they did it.
No, sir.
I probably should have watched The Confidential on this episode so I could learn how they did that water from their mouths effect.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because their teeth are black.
Yeah.
So I kind of assumed that they had some sort of, what do you call it? Almost like a sprinkler system built into whatever covers their teeth. And when they're looking at the camera and the water's pouring out of them, the camera is dead on their faces mostly. And they don't like, what's the word I want? They don't like they're either dead front or to one side specifically on both these guys. So I feel like maybe there has to be like a tube that they're keeping hidden.
Yeah, it's just hard to figure out how, because usually when there's a tube like that, you have to shoot somebody in a specific way so you can't see it, and usually it's not coming from the mouth.
Yeah.
It usually requires people to like hold their hands up to their face because it's actually coming from their hands.
Right.
So maybe I can find The Confidential on YouTube. I think a lot of them are on there. And see if it explains how they did this, because it can't just be that they've got it's so much water.
It's
like,
a lot.
How is it a steady
the two
stream
of them, like,
coming
get on
from
all
their
fours
mouths
at one point, and they're basically like fucking fire hoses.
Well, that I think was CGI.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I do think that the water like hose was like, it was too much. That I think was CGI, especially because both their hands are on the ground and it's just coming out of their mouths, and it just looked a little fake on my TV.
Okay.
But the other water that's just steadily coming out of their mouths, not with force.
That's like dribbling.
Yeah, that I need to understand. How did they do that?
Yeah, I can't imagine how uncomfortable that would be.
I wonder if it's something that was built into the makeup.
Oh, that's what I kind of assumed. Like the tube was under whatever it is that they have around the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about that. Like maybe it's something that's in the like bottom lip aspect of their makeup.
Yeah, it could like. Yeah. Well,
because in
I'm
that
interested.
way they could put a tube that goes around their face, and like then the water pack could be underneath their clothes on their back. Because we're not seeing that part of them. And
if anybody, including you, finds out, please share in the group.
Yeah.
Because now we want to know. As all of that's happening, the doctor's basically been told, all right, you can go. And he's like got his helmet in his hand. And he's standing next to the door and is watching everything with a look of real distaste. Because he is just supposed to let it all happen. And he doesn't like it. And eventually, he just, like, puts his suit on and is trying to get out. And she is required to give him permission. And she essentially, like, holds him hostage and is like, motherfucker, you tell me what the fuck happened, or I'm not letting you out. And I'm going to do something that will like kill you. And he's like, no, you're not. That's totally not something that you would do. And she's like, all right, but would you just tell me though anyway? And this is when he explains fixed moments in time and the fact that the place, like, she has to activate the nuke that's at the center of the what do you call it? And she is willing to take on her duty here. And do what needs doing. But the doctor at this point kind of snaps. And he comes back inside with his suit and is like, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to help all y'all as much as I can. And she is, meantime, still trying to make what he said will happen. Like, he's offering to save them all. And she activates level 5 anyway.
Yeah.
Which, like, honestly, baller move. Seriously. This guy just said some shit to you. You believed him. He's standing here trying to act now like he's going to go back on all that after everything. And that's a real power move. I like it. So yeah. And when he comes running back in, somebody says, we're not fighting the flood, we're fighting time itself. And he yells at, I'm going to win. Mm-hmm. Which I rather liked. And I'm going to win. There's a part of me that just feels like the Doctor's been low-key lying to himself about who he is. And this is who he's been. And he's been fighting his nature. And I just want to see him like let it out. Because he's a real arrogant dude.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to not be when you can do what he can do and you know what he knows. So, inevitable, I feel like. But
maybe a little. I feel like he has been sort of heading towards this over time.
I just really, again, want to emphasize, nobody give me power, please. Just don't do it. Everybody, I've had people before be like say things akin to like you should run things. And I'm just like, oh, sweetie, sweetheart, no. I should not. I am, no.
Well, didn't we establish that you're basically Galadriel when she's tempted by the ring?
100%. Yes. Instead of a Dark Lord, you shall have a queen. So he not only like saves Adelaide and what's her name, Mia and Yuri.
Yep.
Is it Yuri?
Yeah.
But he saves Gadget as well.
Yes, but then when they get back to Earth, like he has lost contact with his Wi-Fi
control unit thing. Yeah, I kind of like that though. That because he's so used to seeing robots that have like sentience, that even though this is a very primitive version, he's already like, you're just humiliating it, making it say this ridiculous thing over and over. That's not nice. You know, nobody else sees them that way yet. But he's like already sort of like, come on, what the hell?
I would like to pose a question to the listeners, the people who know the show better than I do. The Doctor makes a bunch of comments in this episode about how he doesn't like robots. And I'm guessing that maybe that has something to do with Cybermen. But he, you know, and then they talk about a robot dog and he's like, well, dogs are different. So what I would like to know is, because I don't have any recollection of him mentioning otherwise that he doesn't like robots, where that comes from and why. That's my question to you in the Whovians group who like to let us know where we're wrong.
She's talking about the know-it-all pains in the ass.
No,
That's
I actually
what she's saying.
Welcome it because I'm not a Whovian scholar. I like the show.
Listen, as a know-it-all pain in the ass, it's necessary at times. It's fine. Guys, I don't listen to many podcasts at all. Most of my time I spend listening to audiobooks for work. But there is one show that I listen to a lot, The Complete Guide to Everything. And I became a patron of theirs about a year ago, and they do a book club for their patrons. And every book club that I have listened to of theirs, it takes several weeks covering a book. They have covered something that I have never read. So I'm listening to it and just kind of absorbing, you know, whatever it is they're saying at face value. And recently, they started covering Little Women.
Oh.
And I just vastly underestimated how chill I was about inaccuracies. Because as I was listening to it, I was just like, what are you talking? That wasn't Amy, you fucking jags. Oh my God. Can't you even tell Meg from Amy? This is ridiculous. And I definitely was like up in their comments because one of them asserted that the author had used like an ugly stereotype against black people when writing Martha's dialogue. And Martha's a white Irish woman. So it's just like things like that I was like, what are you dude, no, you've got this so wrong. And so I really want everybody to know that when you write in and you're just like, okay, here's like a thing that you got wrong. I get it.
Oh, I get it.
So deeply in my soul, I get it. Please know that. It is just, you can't help it when it's something that you like. Mm-hmm. Even if it doesn't really matter, you just, because then you have to take the risk that they're going to bring that up again later and continue to like base a wrong hypothesis on information that's fundamentally inaccurate. And we can't have that. I'm not listening to this again next week with you doing this. So yeah, guys, I feel you. So the doctor saves them, and uses electro arms to do it. And it's honestly, I kind of like that. I thought that was fun. And what is it? Because he's like trying to get to stop the nuclear blast or get to the Like, what is he even trying to do?
He knows that she's activated the nuke. Right. So he knows that he can't get back to his TARDIS and then back to the base that fast. Right. So he sends Gadget out because he's already like upgraded him to having, rocket speed.
Right.
And puts the key in Gadget's hand, so then the robot goes in the TARDIS and activates the TARDIS and brings it, but he's controlling the robot.
Gotcha.
So he flies the TARDIS to the base in just enough time to get the 3 people on and gets out before the blast happens.
Okay. All right. So
we don't see any of that because they obviously didn't want to deal with having to bring their TARDIS onto whatever the set was. So we hear it, but we never see what happens. We just see the explosion happen, and then they arrive on Earth.
Right. On an empty, snowy street, which reminds us all that this is a holiday special, allegedly.
Well, this was written to be a Christmas special, but then however they planned out the schedule for these 5 specials, it ended up being in the fall.
Okay.
So they took out any reference to Christmas and holidays, but they kept it where it's snowing. But it's November, so it easily could be snowing in November in England.
It's very pretty. I like it. I like the street, too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, everybody else is like, first of all, there's Mia, who is just straight up like, what the fuck are you? And literally runs away.
Yeah.
Which, I mean... Yeah, that's fair. Correct response, Mia. And Yuri runs after her to take care of her. It's implied, I guess, later that they're like a couple because of the way that they're like together. But either way, Adelaide remains and is just like, what the fuck did you do? You just nailed it into my head that this was like a thing that you couldn't do, that was going to fuck up the world, that there were all these repercussions, and then you just went and did it anyway. How about you don't tell me then, or you don't do it? You don't do both. You don't tell me and then do it anyway. And this is when she's like, nobody should have that kind of power, and he just says tough, and she looks at him like, that's just scary to her, like the fact that he just says that. It's almost like one could see it as, yeah, she killed herself because she was supposed to have died, and that's like the thing. But also one could see it as, I'm not living in a world where this guy exists and can just like do whatever he wants. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that would be something that I like, and not for nothing. We already live in a patriarchy where guys can pretty much do whatever they want.
Right.
I don't need to know about this and try and live knowing about this. Thank you very much.
He talks about how there's the rules of the Time Lords, but that was only valid when the Time Lords existed. And since he's the last of his race, he has total authority over time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he says he no longer considers himself to be a survivor, but that he has won it. And he declares himself the Time Lord victorious. And then he talks about how he's always been able to use this power to influence and save little people. And she's like, little people, like Yuri and Mia. And she's like, just disgusted.
Yeah.
By that.
Which, is he gross using that language? Sure. But when your life is the fixed moment in time, I can't help but understand exactly why he says it that way. What happens to these folks apparently doesn't change the fate of the universe like it does with her. So, it's not like it doesn't matter, but it's just not going to have like the far-reaching consequences that her life evidently will or won't. But yeah, so she hurries off and like, I don't think we find out exactly how she kills herself, but you see the gun on her belt. It feels like very purposeful that she touches it, right?
Yeah, she takes it out of its holster.
Oh, she does. You're right. I didn't even see it, that she took it out.
Yeah. I
saw her like touching it, but I didn't realize that she got it all the way out of the holster.
It's a laser gun.
Ooh. Brutal. Oh, yeah, and then we see the flash. Okay, yeah. I'm watching it right now. Sorry, guys. I only got to watch this episode once.
But the doctor doesn't see it because his back is turned. He just hears it.
Yeah, he just hears like the thing. And then all of a sudden he starts to see the changed. It's kind of weird. Like the doctor knows what happens, even if he didn't actually experience it. Like it's a series of Wikipedia articles that get updated in his brain.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not mad at them for like using this as the method to show us. It makes sense in terms of the way that we see things as viewers, but it is just a really funny thing to think about his head as just like a database that is connected to the cloud and just occasionally gets an update that shakes him to his core. And he begins to, like, it's clear it's catching up to him what he just decided to do and the consequences of this. And this is when he turns around and sees a little Oodle standing there.
Sigma.
Being like, fucked up, buddy, huh?
And he's like, is now the time? Is this when I die?
Almost like he wants that to be true.
Yeah.
It seems like he's just like, wow, I really, really fucked this up. How about you just kill me and I don't get a chance to do this again? Too easy, buddy. Nope. You gotta do what us humans do when we fuck up, which is continue to live with it. Yay.
And he refuses. Like, no. I don't care what you say. I'm not gonna die.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, you are, but it doesn't have to mean what you seem to think it means. I mean, he regenerates. So, like, when they say that he's going to die, I don't feel the kind of, like, concern about it that I feel like he does. Because when he's clearly interpreting it as, like, a final death. Like, that's it. You aren't regenerating after. Do they say that when they make the prediction?
No.
So, like,
just says, the Ood says to him back in that episode on Planet of the Ood, he says, your song is ending.
Which, like, that's how it goes, buddy. You've been doing this, you get a version of yourself that lasts so long, and that's how it goes.
You're the 10th version.
Yeah, like, just why are you so flipped out? This is just... I mean, I can understand being, like, attached to a version of yourself in particular.
He does have really great hair, so... I mean, who would want to let go of that?
But there's just, I can't get behind the urgency that he's feeling when I know that he's just getting another crack at things. Like, that's not going to mean what it means for you and I when somebody predicts our death.
So you think.
How amazing would it be if we could regenerate? I would regenerate as Rihanna. Hands down, no problem. I would just fucking... There was an article today from Reductress that said, tell us your birthday and we'll have Rihanna come and punch you in the throat. And the subline was something like, doesn't matter what sign you are. Either way, you're getting punched in the throat by Rihanna. And all of the comments were just like, I absolutely want her to punch me in the throat. Please, yes. There were people who were like, step on me, Rihanna. Like, that's the kind of devotion that she inspires. It's just
I'd rather
people
just
in
hang
comments
out and
being
smoke
like, please
weed with her.
step on me.
I don't want abuse from Rihanna. I want to just chill.
That's not what you're into. But for some people, they're very excited about this.
I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but why do people want the girl who we know was physically abused and punched in the face punching you? Shouldn't you want better for Rihanna?
And maybe they think of it as like her being empowered after her writing her S&M CD.
Maybe. Yeah, okay.
Chains and whips excite her. She said so herself.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Anyway. Who would you regenerate as, Jamie? David Tennant?
No. No. I don't know, because I was sitting here trying to think, like, who do I think is the most beautiful woman? Maybe Kristen Bell. I love Kristen Bell.
Yeah, when I pick Rihanna, it's not even like that I think she's the most beautiful woman. It's just that she's got the thing I want.
Kristen Bell kind of has the thing I want too. She's very happy and fun, and also like, will cry over a sloth being at her house. So I feel like we're kindreds.
Have you ever followed Rihanna's Instagram?
No.
She has a friend. I don't know if it's her Instagram actually or her friend's, but she has a friend who will constantly tell her that she's about to take a photo when in fact she's taking a video. And so there's like a series of like weird videos of her like posing really hilariously and then suddenly being like, are you fucking serious? And then it'll just cut and that's the end of the video. And I love that energy. That's what I'm going for. Maybe I don't want to be brought back as Rihanna. I want to be Rihanna's friend who keeps playing practical jokes on her. That feels a little more my speed. I like the light reflected. Thank you very much.
That's funny.
So yeah, this ends with him on the TARDIS looking thoughtful and worried. And yeah.
Yeah.
The Time Lord victorious. What a weird turn of phrase.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. That didn't feel natural to me. That felt like somebody came up with a thing. Is that like the title of an episode from before?
No.
Okay. It just felt like somebody came up with a thing and they were like, we're going to have him say it.
Oh, well, that would be Russell T. Davies. That's what he does.
Russell T. Davies, why are you like this, buddy? It's not, it doesn't make any like character sense.
At least most of the things in this episode are fully explained. Like, the majority of the time we were not like, why did this happen? And
that's true.
What, did they just throw all these ideas at the wall and just pick what parts they want in? Mm-hmm. Like, at least the story makes sense.
True. God, that's a terrible standard, though. Yeah, Russell T. Davies did write it, but at least it makes sense. Listen, Russell.
This is how far I've come in my switcheroo of who I appreciate more as a showrunner on this show. I still feel very strange about it, but that's what it is.
That'll happen.
I do like that. I don't like. I hate this, but at the beginning, because of real world implications, Adelaide says that for the last 40 years, the Earth has been in chaos with massive climate change, ozone degradation, and the oil apocalypse. Humanity almost reached extinction during this period. And so that is leading up to around 2045. It says Andy's obituary mentions appalling storm conditions in 2040 and climate change affecting agriculture in 2045. And it just feels a little too real. I don't like it.
Too close this side of 2020.
Yep. Especially with the people we have running this country who are like, yeah, let's just let it all burn.
Literally.
Yeah.
We're going to cut funding for that. No big deal. Whatever.
Yeah. Really?
Australia, you know what we're talking about.
Oh, God. I can't. Oh, I can't. I just keep seeing too many articles that I have to scroll fast really fast because it's about the poor animals. And it, like, if I think about it too much, I will fucking panic and start to cry.
Yep. Amen, sister. I have been doing a lot of hide on Facebook because I'm just like, no, sir. I understand that this is a real issue. I'm not trying to, but there's only so much a human being can take before they just become incapacitated by like grief and panic.
Yeah.
So...
I can't with it right now. I'm too fragile. I'm very sorry for what's happening in Australia and I hope it stops soon. Especially to, our listeners in Australia.
Yeah, we have a few. Quite a few, actually.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Sorry.
Speaking of one of them, Allie, she sent us both little adipose.
Yes!
For Christmas.
Thank you very much for that, Allie. She was like, because I had put in my, this was all part of the patron Christmas swap, holiday swap, where we send books. And people will often send extra goodies as well. And,
we all kind of go a little overboard.
Yeah. And there's like a questionnaire that you fill out. And I had said, hey, guys, just no more pop dolls, okay? Because like, I just don't have anywhere to put them. I love them, don't get me wrong, but I don't know what to do with them. And the package came from her with a note on the card on the outside of the envelope that said, sorry about this. I bought it before I read your questionnaire. And I didn't know what, like, I'd forgotten that I even wrote that. So I was like, what is she talking about? And, it turned out to be the adipose, but it's so cute. I can't be mad about it. It's really adorable.
Another listener, Chris Goodnight, he sent me one about a month ago. But it's glow in the dark. And I posted a picture of it in the Whovians group and thanked him. And then Allie sent me a DM and was like, yeah, so I also got you one.
Whoops. They can be friends.
Which is like, I don't think the one I got you is glow in the, or I think the one Chris got you is glow in the dark though. And I was like, hey, they are lonely by themselves. They need friends. They need their siblings. So now I have the two and they're holding hands and it's cute.
So everybody send me another one, is what Jamie's saying, so that I can have a friend for mine.
But I just appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. It was very thoughtful.
Yeah, I always love that stuff when people like feel inspired by a thing to send. It's really sweet.
Yeah.
So,
these are the first gifts that I've gotten that weren't for the Yuletide book swap. So it's especially special to me because no one's ever sent me gifts before.
Yay!
Thanks, guys. And I do not have room for my pop dolls, and I don't care. They've taken over my house.
Yeah, I'm going to have to add some shelves in this room because there's just like no room.
Yeah, mine are everywhere. I have shelves everywhere. And like my mom was here a couple weeks ago, and she was like, you were not kidding. They really are everywhere. And I was like, oh, yeah. Like there's some I haven't even like unpacked because I don't have anywhere to put them right now.
I have a giant basilisk. And I am so sorry. I'm forgetting the name of the person who sent it to me. And I told them when they sent it, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to send you a picture when I make my Halloween display. Nope. Didn't do it. I just like, I could not handle redoing everything with the pop because there's so many and moving them around and everything. Mm-hmm. So I still have it in the box and I keep thinking about it. I literally last night was like in bed going, I got to figure out where to put that basilisk. It's on my mind.
Basilisk is really cool. I've seen it.
It's huge. Yeah. It's really freaky. Owen got me a pop for Christmas also, despite me having told him not to do so.
Which one?
And it is of Ben Chang from Community.
Oh, that's
in his
funny.
White suit with the orange tiger striped paintball gun and the cigarette in his mouth from that one episode.
It's pretty good.
It's excellent. He
Even
said that he
though
saw
I
it and was just kind of like,
hate Senor Chang, but
Senor Chang makes that show, and you will never convince me otherwise.
Sometimes I think he's too much.
That's exactly right. Yes. All right. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I was just checking to see if we had any reviews. I hadn't seen any emails about it recently, but that doesn't mean that they didn't happen, and I don't have any new reviews. And there's nobody that was on our bingo list from this episode because Gemma Chan has not been in Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. But she was in the Marvel Universe.
She does feel like she could have been in Harry Potter.
She could have been Cho Chang if she was a little bit younger, probably.
Maybe, yeah.
But, yeah, so.
And I wanted to read, because I have, you guys know that I've been posting the promo for War for the Tower podcast at the beginning of episodes. But I recently, Jeff got in touch with me and was like, I want to do some new copy, because I've been, either ad-libbing or doing the same one. And he sent me this, by now you've heard all about the War for the Tower, the Stephen King adjacent actual play. So the makers of the show wanted me to say just this. We love you, Natasha. And he was like, said this to me. He was like, is it weird to have you like thanking yourself? And I was like, I've done weirder stuff, so sure. Happy holidays, and may all your podcasts be as good as the one before. And to all the other Unspoiled Network hosts, you have made us very, very happy indeed. Stay weird, everybody.
Will do.
So thank you very much to Jeff for that. And I hope that you guys will, if you're into RPG podcasts and the Dark Tower, part of the goal of their game is to correct some of the mistakes. And yes, I will use that word that King made with his own universe, which I really think by the time you make the kinds of mistakes that he made, it's not yours anymore. You get it, it's taken away from you. So yeah, I think everybody should check out War for the Tower and let them know that you heard about them on our show. And yeah.
Definitely.
And lastly, I want to let everybody know Rashawn and I are coming up to the end of Deathly Hallows on our reread.
What?
Yes, ma'am. We are probably like 3 episodes away, 4, maybe 6 from finishing that book again.
Wow.
And
wait, I don't even remember you guys
before,
doing
but so
Half-Blood Prince. Where did the time go?
Oh my God, seriously? Yeah, we just finished like chapters 22 and 23, I think, of Deathly Hallows reread. So we're coming to the end, and after that is when we are aiming to do the Song of Ice and Fire series, which Rashawn has not read, but she has seen the show. Mm-hmm. And we have the fundraiser going. The thing is, it's the 2nd of January today. And what's so tough about having Patreon goals is that every time people get charged for the month, it happens on the 1st of the month, every month, there are a big chunk of people for whom the payment doesn't go through. Sometimes they changed credit cards or the expiration date, or, they just are overdrafted and it doesn't clear. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden my goal will have been at like 78% and it drops to like 68%. And I've lost apparently like 80 patrons overnight, and it's not real. They come back. Most of them come back. But for a moment, I just get so discouraged every month, even though I know that it's not real, So right now I was going to say like, oh, we're at such and such percent to our goal, but we aren't really, because it says 75%. And I know we're closer than that. So anyway, guys, if you are interested in Rashawn and I covering Song of Ice and Fire, I really want to be able to compensate her because this is going to involve a lot more labor in a variety of ways than other shows. So we are
because
trying
you guys
to
are going
reach
to
this
act it out.
fundraiser. Yeah, we're going to make a stage play and correct the errors of the show.
Cool.
We're going to start an RPG show of our own. No, it's just Song of Ice and Fire fans are really high maintenance. And
What? That's absurd.
they're
Just kidding.
like
No, they are.
They're like the book fans, the equivalent of Star Wars fans, where it's like there's lots of women fans, but the men are the loudest and the angriest and the most active. Mm-hmm. And they tend to crowd into spaces and get really like gross and insulting right away. And I am trying to make it worth it to cover it by having this kind of fundraiser to get us to another stage. And if we reach it, we're going to cover it. And I'm going to be giving half of that extra chunk to Rashawn every month. So yeah, we're at 75% complete. If you're interested in upping your pledge, you can do that.
And this is going to be patrons only, right?
No.
Oh.
It will not. This will be available to everybody. The goal here for me is Song of Ice and Fire is the very last show I have that has, like, even the end of Breaking Bad, that show was midway. Like, I split up with Brendan while we were recording it and wound up transitioning to covering it with Nina for the last few episodes. Mm-hmm. And Song of Ice and Fire is so much bigger than Breaking Bad ever got. It got so much more attention, has so many more reviews, and it's something that isn't finished yet. So there's another book eventually, allegedly, coming out at some point.
Fingers
crossed.
And
I have just really felt like I want it to be mine and not something that's got Brendan's name on it anywhere. Mm-hmm. So in order to accomplish that, I didn't want to just pull it from iTunes. So the goal will be for me and Rashawn to like overtake it, for there to be more or newer, more popular version of the show with me and her. And eventually I will be pulling the episodes with Brendan from iTunes entirely. So if you're interested in listening to like the original show, the first podcast I ever did, buckle up. You will have to go and download it before I delete it. But then Rashawn and I will be starting ours, and I can say that everything from Unspoiled is something that has nothing to do with my ex-husband at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's also like the only show, because he was the one that had control of it. It's posted to iTunes from Libsyn. It's the only show that is. Everything else is on Spreaker because it's still connected to his Apple iTunes username. And he can't change that. We got in touch with Apple, and it was either you give her your password and start a new Apple account, or you leave it. And we just chose to leave it.
Apple's weird in that way. Like, Jason started like the family sharing so that we could share Apple Music. Mm-hmm. But when he signed my name up with that, or when he linked my account to his, now anytime I purchase anything on iTunes, it charges him.
Oh, that's so annoying.
And the only way around that was to get iTunes gift cards and load them onto my iTunes so that like my Apple Care gets charged to me every month and not him for my brand new phone. Yeah. It's really annoying. So like every time I buy something, and now I just don't buy anything on Apple unless I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to give you the cash. Because I was like buying stuff and he'd be like, what's this? And I'm like, why do you know I bought that?
And what kills me about this in particular is all of the reviews that I got for Song of Ice and Fire are linked to that. So if I delete that entirely, I lose 400 plus reviews altogether. Yeah. So what I am intending to do, and I might come up with a better idea, but for now this is what I'm working with, is to upload the new episodes with Rashawn, if we reach our goal, to that feed, and warn people that the ones before are going to go away soon. Give people at least a month of coverage on that feed, but I will also start a second feed from Spreaker. And I'll be posting the same episodes to there. And eventually I'll stop posting on the original feed. It'll transition entirely to Spreaker. And I will just be letting people know on the original, like, if you like it, leave a review. This gets people's attention, but then go here. Because I don't really want to sacrifice all of those reviews. I may change my mind and think it's worth it later. We'll see. But I just want everybody to know what's going on with that. It's just something that's important to me personally is making this like completely mine at this point. I've been doing it so long and now it's my actual job. So I would really love to reach this goal and cover this. I really, really want to do it. But
I want you guys to do it.
I think Rashawn's perspective as somebody who's seen the show but not read the books will be really a nice, different take too.
Yeah.
You know,
because the books are different.
Very different.
Even in the the first couple of seasons where they follow the books pretty closely, there's still stuff in those books that every time I reread them, I'm like, oh man, this would have been great to see.
Yeah. And it's like a lot of times you're like, I get why you didn't. I'm not even mad.
Yeah.
But like, oh, how cool would this have been?
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah.
And then you just learn more. You think you know the characters until you read the books and you're like, oh.
Yeah, that too.
Well, I didn't know any of this about Jon Snow because I was never inside of his head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it'll be fun. It'll, you know, if people want to listen to the original show, it's all still going to be available on the website. So you can go there if like you're itching for somebody that is totally unspoiled to the whole story. But that it's just going to be really different. I mean, when Brendan and I covered it, we covered like one chapter per episode too.
Yeah.
And we did multiple episodes a week. It was just a whole other beast at that time because it was the only show we were doing, so we could do that. And now it's just, you know, it's just going to be very, very different. But I'm really hopeful that we'll make our goal and that everybody thinks that it's worth it. And like, if you become a patron, it's, by the way, patreon.com/unspoiled, to support us like doing that show. You're going to also get access to a ton of other stuff, you guys. Yeah. A lot.
And since it's not patrons only, you don't have to pledge
fucking Patreon.
Well, that. But you don't have to pledge a certain amount to get the content. You just have to pledge $1. And if everyone...
No, it's $5. We don't do $1 anymore. Yeah.
Oh, Patreon
$1 got canceled a few months back.
Okay,
yeah.
so $5. But $5 still, a month is not that much money.
Yeah, I'm a patron of a few podcasts at that rate.
Yeah, same. I think my Patreon bill is like $45 at this point every month.
But like a lot of people, they just have really good patrons only content.
Yeah.
Like me, you know?
Nobody has as much as you.
I honestly, I'm not even trying to be cute. I have so much more patrons only stuff than anybody out there. Like I've looked.
I became a patron of several different podcasts because I had this weird expectation that like, other people are kind of the same way as you. And then I'm like, oh, so sometimes there's like polls or whatever. Well, I'm not going to pay $10 to enter a poll. That's my one perk.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where I'm like
extra episodes.
Sorry. Well, yeah, that's because I feel like on the one hand, I get really contemptuous and I'm like, that's all you offer. And on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, these people have actual jobs, Natasha. Like they're not. But then I'm like, but I did too for a while.
Yeah, some of them are podcasts only, like that is their job as well. And they don't offer what you offer.
Yeah.
They offer one extra podcast a week.
Which I just really, it's not even like, because different formatted shows, it takes a lot of time to collect your material and whatever, you know, if you're doing a different thing than what I'm doing. But, I really just am surprised that they aren't personally, not even for their patrons, that they aren't personally interested in doing more. Because that's my problem. Isn't just that I'm like a workaholic because I want to make money and like make this a successful job, but I want to do so many things. Mm-hmm. And I wind up baking too many pies and wind up having to like go back and then delete one of those pies and pretend it never happened. So
don't delete the pie, you eat the pie.
Is that like your life's mantra? That sounds like a maxim.
Yeah, that's gonna be my I'm going to have to put that on like Instagram.
That's going to be your for 2020, your motto.
My about me. Don't delete the pie. You eat the pie.
I like it. All right, everybody. Well, those are the updates for this year. Again, patreon.com/unspoiled. Pledge $5 or more, depending. $5, you're also going to get access to Twilights, which will be restarting pretty soon. And after that, Mistborn. And currently, Great British Bake Off.
Can't believe you're doing Mistborn.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that's happening. So, how about that? And then eventually, after Mistborn, years in the future, I want to cover Sookie Stackhouse with Miles because I feel like that's just going to be a ride.
Yeah, that's what I voted for because I thought it'd be more fun right away. But
I did too. But so many people have been asking for Mistborn for so long that I do kind of I have a sense of relief that we're going to get to it. So if you guys are interested in those, you could support A Song of Ice and Fire even if you're not interested in it by supporting something that you are.
Yeah,
so
true. If you're not already a patron and you love Doctor Who, you could support us by becoming a patron. Just because you like Doctor Who, and that will help A Song of Ice and Fire, which you should definitely listen to when it starts. If it starts. It has to start by you pledging money. See how we've got this going?
Yeah. It's a big circle.
Yep. Snake is eating his tail.
Big circle jerk.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you again so much. We love you. And we will see you next week with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.